Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so welcome again. Thank you so much for joining all of us in this meeting. And some of you may be familiar with the generative citizen community. Maybe some of you are new for us. And we would like to share with you just that we are a global community of friends and colleagues. And we aim to inspire and support each other, building a better world through generative citizen training, peer support groups, and projects. And our vision is a world where people feel safe, are welcome, creative, and generate new positive connections and solutions to build a better world together. And today we have the honor of having here also Judith Lau, who inspired this community, and also Julian. So if any of you want to share something about this community, you are most welcome. It would be nice to hear from you also.
Well, I'm really, really happy to be here, Graciela, and so lovely to see everybody. Really looking forward to this evening with Dermot, and thank you for creating this lovely evening for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining and for
Yes.
creating this also. Thank you. Thank you. Julian, would you like to say something? Nice to see you here.
Yeah.
I'm on a train, so I won't say very
Okay.
much.
Okay. Okay.
But
Thank you for
I'm
joining.
really looking forward to hearing what Dermot has to say and the neuroscience around the heart and the gut brains. So important. It's a complete evolution for psychotherapy and coaching. So I'm really looking forward to learning from Dermot on this subject. It's really great to be here with you all.
Great. Great. Thank you very much.
Mm.
So, and well, this event is organized and planned by one of the circle of the generative citizen community. It's called the Events Circle, and it's formed by Bimala, George, Shehan, and myself. And Teresa, who is part of the communication circle, has supported us a lot also. Dermot is also part of the generative community, the citizen community. And we, as the event circle, aim to design and plan and put together one-off events, bringing the community together so that we can learn, share, and grow together within the generative citizen framework. And today we are going to listen from Dermot Rush. He will present us the three-brain coaching, which is an integrative approach. We know that working with the neurobiology of the body is an emerging field in coaching and psychotherapy. We already know intuitively that we make decisions and things with our heads, our hearts, and also our guts. And science seems to be catching up, bringing together some information about how the vagus nerve communicates between head, heart, and gut. And Dermot today will explore these features of the three-brain coaching approach. Dermot Rush is Irish. He lives with family in Galway at the West Coast, and he's there now, as he shared. He has worked in the health and care sectors as a psychologist and service manager for 20 years, 25 years. After then, he worked in organization psychology and human resources consulting for 22 more years. And he has a strong interest in personal development. He's trained in generative coaching, generative change with Stephen Gilligan and Robert Dills, and also in Creative Mind. And he has also done foundational training with the Strozzi Institute, focused on embodied change and leadership. He's trained on multi-braining coaching in 2022, and he's interested in how we link between various coaching and development approach, and what he's sharing with us today has to do with that. He's also a nice, kind, and warm-hearted man, I would say, because I know him. I have the privilege of knowing him. So, dear friend, thank you so much for sharing this with us, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Graciela. That's lovely. Thank you very much for all coming along to this this evening. Just to put it in context a little bit, that this presentation is really an opportunity just to share with you another approach to personal development, which also has a coaching arm to it. It's not a training in the actual methodology, okay? And it's not, nor am I would say, a particular expert in this particular approach. I'm a practitioner, I would say, probably an experienced practitioner, but I wouldn't even be qualified to train people, I would say, in the full coaching methodology. So it's really, I suppose the idea came to me that a lot of what we're doing in Generative Citizen is trying to take what we have out into the world to make a better difference in some way. And part of that to me is linking between different groups of people who are using maybe slightly different methods, but all with the same overall objective in mind, which is to help people to grow and develop and become fuller human beings. So the aim of this today really is just to introduce you to a different approach, get you to try it out a little bit, and then get you to think and talk a little bit and share about your experience of that, and also about how you see linkages between this approach and any other approaches you use, but particularly the whole generative citizen framework, if you like. So I'm going to show a few slides. So just bear with me a minute. Okay. So this is our overall agenda. We've had the welcome, and we haven't actually got into a coach state. So maybe, yeah, let's just spend a minute getting into a coach state if we can, okay? So I'm sure most of you are familiar with the idea of a coach state, but it's basically, if you like, fully into the moment, into the present moment, with the whole of your being. And so I invite you to, I'll just do this very quickly with you. I invite you to, if you're sitting down, to sit back in your chair and try and get your back straight, a sort of alignment between your head, your neck, the core of your body, and with your legs touching the ground or whatever a nearest equivalent is. Okay, and just pay attention to your breathing. So breathing in and out. In and out. And as you're doing this, I invite you to pay attention to your breathing and to maybe just work on a little exercise, which is to say breathe in for 5 seconds and then breathe out for the same amount of time. So breathing in and out. In and out. And we'll continue this balanced breathing, maybe extend it to 6 seconds. In and 6 seconds out. And as you're breathing, let yourself drop out of your conscious thinking mind, busy, and just drop into your breathing. And dropping down, right down into your body. Relaxing. Finding a center. And I invite you to bring your wise adult mind into the session, all the knowledge and experience you've gained in your wonderful life. And to bring your warm, kind, compassionate heart into the discussion and the meeting. Opening out to everyone here and sharing. And finally, I invite you to bring your gut, your deep, stable, well-intentioned gut into the session as well. And I'll count you back from 3 and we can start the formal piece. So 3, for wise adult mind. 2, for warm, tender heart. And 1, for gut engagement with the work. Thank you. Okay, good to go. So let me just do a quick intro on where the 3 Brains coaching comes from. Yeah, well, this is what we're going to cover. So it's to just explain the method to you in an overview way, get you to try it out in a small experiential way, and then we talk about its linkages to other fields we're working with. Okay. This is the core reference. In the blue here is the book, which is this book here. And it's called M-braining, which stands for multiple braining, using your multiple brains to do cool stuff. So it comes from Australia, I would say, in terms of the authors. And the idea of it is that it covers, it's taking NLP and moving it on by looking at how we use what we're learning from neuroscience in terms of the 3 different aspects, which we call brains here in this session, and then how to use these to grow and develop, increase your intuitive abilities, and primarily generate wiser decision-making in your life. The 2 authors are both NLP master trainers, master practitioners, and they spent about 3 years modeling this approach. So they basically took all the research that's emerging on our heart brain and our gut brain and modeled how that actually works for people in practice. Okay, and linked it back to emerging neuroscience, but also went further to other growth frameworks and I would say growth movements, going right back to, if you like, fundamental belief systems, Okay, the key reference source is www.mbraining.com. That's the website. And the other one, obviously, is the book itself. Okay, now I'm going to stop here straight away. I'm going to get you to do something. So what I want to do is just a warm-up exercise where we split you into, I think we split you into threes because of that we've limited time. So the idea is two people work with each other. One person shares an issue or a struggle or something you're working with that you haven't resolved, but that's relatively low intensity. The second person facilitates that exploration in terms of listening with empathy, asking questions, and holding the space. Okay, and then you switch around after 10 minutes. In fact, it'd probably be better to do this in about 8 minutes each. And the idea is simply to understand what the other person is dealing with, what the issue is. It's not to resolve it. Okay, it's just to explore it. So the overall exercise would take 20 minutes, and I'd say, let's say actually 16 now, because we're running a little bit quicker than we thought. So Vimana, can you automatically assign people in threes, maybe? The third person obviously would just observe.
You guys should have invites. Please join. Now, Julian, I've not put you in a room. If you'd like to go, you can. You're on a train, I understand. Judith. Right?
So the recording is off, Vimana, is it? Yeah. Okay, are we all back?
They are coming back.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that, folks. I mean, that's partly, I suppose it's a warm-up, but it's also just, it's a baseline for, I'm going to ask you to try out some of these techniques in about 15 or 20 minutes, and we're going to use the same groupings again. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the theory here for a minute and just run through this. So I need to share the slides again, I think. Okay, can you see that? Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. So okay, Julian was asking about he was talking about the neuroscience of all this. This is like the background to this approach is that, you know, they looked at all the emerging scientific evidence around these three different areas of intelligence, if you like. I've been calling them brain, but it's probably better to call them intelligences, really, because they're if you like, intelligent systems, if you like. But the one of the defining criteria for all three is that they have what are called, if you like, neural networks, which are physically located in all three. Okay, so in your thinking brain, obviously, in your heart, but also in your gut, which we're talking about everything from your throat to your anus, so the whole full length of your gut, if you like. Okay, these are the the sort of physiological components that make up a brain. I'm not going to go down through these in detail because we could get readily sidetracked into that. But just to show that this is, if you like, the amount of neurons that have been shown to be available in each of these three systems. Okay, so you can see how substantial it is, and yet there isn't any particular evidence so far about number of neurons versus efficacy of this. Sorry?
Everybody, yeah, I think someone's on mute. Can everyone mute, please? And Dermot, putting up a full screen.
Where the train will divide.
I think that's Julian. Julian.
All right, okay. Okay.
And yes, thank you very much.
The
Okay,
front portion will also call that Newton Abbot.
So here are the three systems, if you like, three brains, three intelligence. Each of them has what's called a prime function and a set of competencies, if you like, that go with the prime function. The cognitive brain, the one we all know best, I suppose, as a brain, its primary function is cognitive perception, as in taking information in and dealing with it and processing it, okay? It also is the center of thinking in terms of what we know about thinking logically and creatively and so on. And its primary function is making meaning at that sort of level, okay? The heart brain primary function is emoting, as in working with the feelings and emotions. It's relational affect, so it's all about your connecting and relating to other people. And it's also the seat of your core personal values, which I find very interesting, because apparently your beliefs aren't located in the same place as your values are. Okay. And then the third brain, the gut brain, its primary function is self-preservation. So you know this thing, if you walk down a dark street at night, you get a gut feeling of either, safety or not safety. Okay, so it's that type of self-preservation. It's also where your core identity as a person is located. So your core identity is a sort of a gut feeling, if you like, or a gut relating. And the third thing that your gut brain does is it's the way you mobilize for action. Okay, so if you think about the way we commonly use language, it's pretty obvious that all three brains, we're aware of them actually in the way we use language. So if somebody says, I had to swallow my anger and get on with it, you can see they're clearly talking about a gut-centered approach, if you like. So I can actually, what we could do very quickly, if what we could do very quickly is just do this yourselves, okay? Take a minute for each of these, or no, 30 seconds even, okay? So remember a time when you felt each of these emotions, each of these sensations, okay? And remember it fully in terms of how you bodily experienced each of these. First one, logical and clear-headed. So remember a time you were logical and clear-headed, and get in touch with what that was like. Sense of being logical, or experience of being logical, clear-headed. Okay, shake yourself off. Forget about that one, okay? Do a quick movement of some sort, move your eyes, that's it, okay? Try the second one. Remember a time when you felt filled with love and kindness. And pay attention, where in your body is that experience? How is it represented? How can you amplify it? Okay. We forget that one, wipe that one out and give yourself a shake and move for a little bit, whatever, okay? And now the third one, a time when you felt gutsy and courageous. And again, experience that fully. Where in your body? How is it represented? What's with it? Is it color? Is it energy? What is it? Okay, so let that one go as well. Okay, so I'm hoping what you'll have experienced even just by doing that is that these three experiences are represented very differently in your body, and they're probably the prime location of your experience them could actually be in a very different part of your body. Would that be right? Yeah. Okay. So moving it on a little bit, a key part of this approach is that when all three of these intelligences are working together, we're generally in an integrated and very effective state, if you like, and have a very effective capability. But we can easily get constrained in the way these three work together. So the first one you can imagine is when one or two intelligences are used to the exclusion of the other. Okay. And I would say in my experience that most people do not use all three in a sort of, in a well-balanced manner. Most people have a habitual tendency to use two rather than the third, if you like, for greater frequency or as a sort of habitual response. The second way they get constrained is if one intelligence dominates or swamps the others completely. So you can imagine, I mean, the classic one is somebody who, who maybe manages people, but is extremely logical head-based. And they find it very difficult to connect with the people they manage and to, if you like, motivate them because of that. Yeah, they don't have a way of connecting with the people they work with fully. Another one, I mean, I'm very familiar with somebody I know seems to massively work from the heart. And so everything gets, if you like, played through the filter of the heart as the first main processing system. And that person ends up paradoxically, so far in their lives anyway, they've had numerous relationships that didn't work out for them. And partly it could be because they're not using the other two intelligences to complement the heart intelligence to make those relationships work better. Okay. A third one is when one of the three is used inappropriately to do the prime function of another. So a classic example would be somebody who, tries to get into action by using their head brain all the time. Making lists of what they have to do or making lists of options, etc., etc. But they never actually seem to get into action. Okay. Or somebody who's trying to develop a new relationship with somebody, but they spend most of their time trying to do it from maybe either their gut or their head, rather than from the empathic feelings in their heart. Okay. The fourth way that these can work not well together is when they're in conflict with each other. So again, you could have a situation where your heart wants to take a particular course of action, but your gut freezes up and won't allow you to actually put it into action. Okay, so there's something going on between the two of them. And finally, there's a situation can arise where you have all three intelligence involved in something, but they're working in the wrong sequence. Okay, and I'll explain to you what they feel is probably the best sequence for decision making, and we'll try it out in practice. Okay, so next thing is the language of the three brains, and this is really, really important. So if you're talking to the cognitive brain and trying to explore something with the cognitive brain, the type of language that works is the adverb really, because the brain is a reality testing machine, if you like, okay, or system. So you're saying to the person, well, what do you really think, or what do you really know, or how do you perceive that? How do you understand that? Or what does that really mean for you? Okay. But you use a different language when you're talking to the heart. So you're talking about truly. Okay. So what do you truly feel? What do you truly desire? What do you truly find is most important for you? How do you truly connect with that person? Okay. And the gut brain, you're asking questions using the word deeply. Okay. So what do you deeply identify with? What do you deeply hunger for? How are you deeply moved by this particular thing? How do you deeply feel safe in a situation like this? Okay, so that's a really important part of this, is the right language to engage each intelligence. Another thing they put a lot of emphasis on, which I'm not going to do here today because of time constraints, but just this idea that a whole part of working with people's different bodily intelligences is being very conscious of having their autonomic nervous system balanced or aligned. Okay, so I'm assuming you know a little bit about the autonomic nervous system, but it's basically the nervous system that isn't, if you like, controlled by your conscious brain. So it's not the nervous system that moves your arms and legs, it's the nervous system that manages your digestion, okay, manages how you're feeling, etc., etc. And there's two arms to it: parasympathetic, sympathetic. Sympathetic is the action one, fight and flight. Parasympathetic is the sort of the consolidator mode. So it's more, if you like, less active, more absorbing. Okay, and the idea of working with the three intelligences is you need to get the autonomic nervous system aligned. It can't be too strongly in one system or the other. And balanced breathing, that what we did there in the introduction, the balanced breathing is a way of getting your autonomic nervous system aligned in the center. Okay, so neither sort of hypo aroused nor hyper aroused. And that's the type of place you need your system to be generally to do effective rote work. Generally, now there are exceptions. Okay. So I talked about doing things in the right sequence. This is what they present as what they call the foundational sequence for decision making. Okay, you start with the heart. Okay, why would you start with the heart? Because it's really the center of your values. So if a person is working on something, a good place to start is, why is this important for you? Okay. And it's important because in some way it relates to a person's values, their core values in some way, whether they're conscious of that or not. Okay. So we start with the heart and we ask the person to engage with their heart and explore what this particular issue means for their heart. Okay, is it relationship based? Does it really impinge on their values? Do they primarily experience it as a feeling and an emotion? Okay. Once they've looked at the issue from the point of view of their heart, we ask them to then pass it up to their head brain or their head intelligence and ask their head intelligence to work on it. Okay, to do whatever it needs to do in terms of reality testing, logic, information that's true or not true, and then I suppose options, the development of options. Then we go back to the heart with whatever the brain has come up with, and the brain and the heart, if you like, make sure that that's aligned and will work with what's fundamentally most important for the person and how they feel about it. And then the heart passes those options that are congruent options, if you like, down to the gut and asks the gut to absorb and to evaluate how it feels about the options that are being suggested by the brain and align with the heart. And finally, when the gut has engaged and if you like, work that through, it passes it back to the heart and says, this feels right for me and I feel ready for action. Is that okay? We're going to get you to practice it, so we'll show the slide again in about 2 minutes. Okay. So another important part of this approach is that the two authors of the approach believe in what they call 3 highest expressions of the intelligences. So they believe the highest expression of the mind, of the conscious brain, the cognitive brain, is creativity, which is the generating of new ideas or new concepts or whatever. They believe the highest expression of the heart intelligence is compassion. And they believe that the highest expression of the gut brain or the gut intelligence is courage, the courage to act. And of course, when you look at all 3 of these, you realize that none of the 3 really ever operate completely independently, and you need all 3 to really work together. For any of these highest expressions, in actual fact, you need an integration across the 3. Okay. What else can I tell you? Yeah, I think we've done enough theory there, so we should be pretty much on time to do a second exercise. So in this second exercise, what I want you to do work in the same pair or the same 3, but only work with one issue. But work very slowly with that issue, using and trying to engage all 3 intelligences to work on the issue. So one person works on their issue, the second person facilitates them through the sequence, the 5-step sequence: heart, head, heart, gut, heart. And the third person observes and, if you like, sees what's going on and intuits what's really happening behind the scenes, if you like. And what I'd say to you is that it's really important if I go back to that language slide for a minute, it's really important. It's really important that when you're facilitating somebody through this sequence, you don't do it, which we can often be tempted to do depending on our own preferences, but you don't do it as a question and answer sequence. What is your heart feeling now? What are you thinking now? It's not that type of a thing. It's actually helping the person to get in touch with each of their intelligences. And then you're facilitating them by helping them to explore each of those intelligences in turn as it deals with whatever the issue is. So you can be using all your great skills around things like, how does that feel? Where in the body is it? If you're representing it, how would you represent it? If it had color, what color is it? If it has energy, what's the energy like, etc. Okay? So that's why it's going to take time to explore. And so it's better just to do one and try and really get a feel for it. So before Vimalia puts you in the groups again, just remember this is the sequence, okay? You're always anchoring with the heart. You're starting with the heart, you're going to the head, you're going back to the heart to integrate and align criteria, if you like, down to the gut for readiness to absorb and readiness to act, and then finally back to the heart, sign off. It's worth doing. Is that okay? All we really need to do is have a go at it and just experience what it's like, okay? So, Vimana, can we go back into, yeah.
20 minutes, Dermot?
I'd say we've probably time to do 25 minutes.
25?
Yeah.
Perfect.
20 and a quick debrief in the group, and then we'll come back in plenary.
Right. Right. Off you guys go. And I have put the sequencing in the chat. So if you
Yeah,
didn't
that'd be
get it,
great.
I've done it already. And if it's there, so you guys can refer to that as you work. All right,
Thank
off you
you.
guys go.
How are you?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Good to see you.
Let me see. So I suppose that the two questions we might cover in the debrief.
Wait, can you put on your camera, please?
Okay, can you hear me or am I on mute?
We
Okay.
can.
So let's just do a debrief with there's two sort of focuses for the debrief. The first one is just what was your experience like using the different, trying to access the different intelligences, trying to use that language that aligns with each one. So what were your impressions? Mainly, let's start with the person who was being supported, if you like, or facilitated, and then with the facilitators in each pair or three. So over to you guys.
Mm.
You just unmute and share, guys.
Yeah, there's Iris. Yeah.
Yes, I'm being coached. I think
Great.
a lot of tears and is enlightenment. Enlightenment is solved my big problem for over 6 years.
Wow.
I think this conversation is like it's a touch point, like make me explore, build up so many knowledge, so many wisdom, so many help over 6 years. And Maggie asked me questions, and it's really solved my big issue. I feel it's so helpful. It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So obviously it helped in some way to connect different parts of what your experience are.
Yes, especially at a later stage, and so many feelings down to my stomach here.
Yeah.
So when we discuss the first question, so everything's on my head. And then second part I can feel and down to here. And so many tears, and I really, really thanks for our great learning group. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. And who was working with Iris?
Maggie.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself.
Yeah, I can hear you, Maggie. Yeah.
Okay, what would you like? Would you like me to?
Yeah, what was your experience? Yeah.
My experience was it was really helpful just to have those 5 little things and work out what was happening and keep going up and down them.
Yeah.
You know, to go from the head to the heart and the heart to the head. It wasn't quite as linear as
Oh no.
as it was
Why would
there.
it be?
But it was, and I think some of it is about just having the time, people to have the time to explore it with
Yes.
give it airtime to what we're holding inside.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Any other feedback? How did people find using, the language or trying to move around, help the person move around, get in touch with the different systems?
So I'll go. I was being coached by Nigel through this process, and I was actually, so reflecting back on the discussion that we had, I was actually experiencing a lot of the constraints that we discussed in one of the previous slides. And with Nigel, I'm not a very gestury person, but then just while going through the discussion and while going through the process, he was able to elicit a proper gesture out of me. And that was a tube light moment for me, an aha moment in which I was like, okay, I can also have gestures, and I can actually use these gestures for my, and this was my gesture, by the way, and use these gestures to for my own benefit and to get all the 3 systems in line.
Yeah.
So that was a wonderful moment for me.
Thank you for that, Tusha. That's really interesting. I mean, I actually meant to say it to you, but one of the things that slipped my mind is that when you're doing this initially with somebody, it's useful to use somatic movements. So when I'm saying to somebody, "How do you feel?" I put my hands on my own heart. And then when I ask them to go back up to their cognitive brain, I do this initially, just for a minute, to get them and then get them to follow. And the same thing with the gut. So it's a sort of, I suppose you could call it like a, somatic marking or something. But it's very useful for helping the person to move from one part of their body, one system to another. So I should have said that to you, but yeah. You're also expert anyway. Somebody were probably doing it anyway. Any other feedback?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I was watching Maggie and Iris, and it was just so beautiful to watch Maggie coaching Iris really engaging sides. It was such a beautiful thing. It was very, very powerful to see how useful that simple model is as a decision-making process, going between the different levels and bring them all together. I thought it was really a great exercise. Thanks, Dermot.
Thank you.
And it was lovely watching Maggie and Iris. It was beautiful and touching.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Julian. George, would you like to share your experience?
Yes, I was working with Graciela. So maybe anything that I say that Graciela doesn't agree with, please come online. I found I've had the privilege of doing this before with you, but I'd actually sort of forgotten most of it. Sorry, but let's be. I found it was the very very simple model, but I sometimes got mixed up with the language, with a different. Even though I had the slide there, and I studied, and I'm not sure that we were doing decision making. I think we were doing some more integrative work, rather than a decision making. I don't know whether you'd agree, Graziella. Please, if what I've said isn't clear or you don't feel it, please come back and ask some questions.
Thank you, sir. I agree with you. It for me it was a very powerful exercise, very powerful. I think we went very deep, and I would say it. I agree with. It wasn't a decision process. It was more an integration for me. And actually, the feeling I had when we were finishing is that that kind of integration could help me like a coaching state in other situations. That was my feeling. And it was very deep, very. I had a lot of feelings in the body, very interesting. And George says he got mixed up with the words. I didn't feel that it was appropriate for me. It was.
Yeah.
So thank you. It's I think it's a very powerful model.
Yeah, I don't think, in the limited time that you had, I don't think you'd be expecting maybe to necessarily be making decisions, but it's actually it's an engagement, isn't it? It's just the start of an engagement and an exploration. Yeah, because I think once, even if we say decision making, we're beginning to set a goal in our heads, like, there's an objective and a task to be done, and it doesn't really work as well that way. So yeah, I would be very impressed that you were able to just help the person explore, really, and get a wider experience of whatever the issue is from the different intelligence that they get in touch with, really, and they access. Yeah.
Can I also add something?
Yes.
There was something very odd for me, which is after we began with the heart, then we went to the head, and then came back to the heart. And in that moment, I felt a very intense heat in my chest and my neck. And that was very strong and unexpected. And I thought, and I wonder if it could be related with the vagus nerve. Because it was a feeling and very strong. And I'm just want to share this because it was really unexpected.
Yeah. The research apparently shows that about 80% plus of messaging in the vagus nerve goes upwards. So it goes up from the heart and it goes up from the gut, really importantly. So it actually, although we think that we decide things with our brain, with our cognitive brain, and we do all this stuff, in actual fact, the other two systems are very powerfully affecting the cognitive brain the whole time. And who knows? I said it could well have been. It could well have been. I find when I do this work with people that I draw a lot on those NLP sort of techniques around, you might model the sequence for the person first by using the example yourself and run down through the sequence yourself, doing the physical movements to sort of access each part, if you like, or each system. And then if you like, helping the person to explore in each system, what are the sort of, what are the experiences? Where are they? What's their texture? All what's their energy? What's their amplitude? All these pieces. Rather than, rather than work in a way that says, what is this system doing? Like what's an output? It's not that. It's explore what your body is telling you when you pay attention to each system in turn. And then a further level, which we wouldn't have time to do here today, but is when you start getting one system to talk to the other system.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
I want to share something else that I just realized regarding the making decision process, because I said I didn't feel it like that, but then I'm realizing that what I have as an integration is like integrating that way of checking from now on in things. So it could be
Yes.
something that helps with decisions from now on. It's
Mm.
like something that involves a broader knowledge, I would say.
Yeah.
That for me had to do a lot with sensations, but
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
sure.
It makes sense. Yeah. George?
Yeah, could I, when I was basically working with Graciela, I found there was, for myself, a sort of overlap of the different brains.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't a sort of clear, crisp,
No.
difference. Is that, I presume, I presume that's normal. That's part of the integration of the three, or can be? I'm not saying, excuse me, I'm not saying that I have integrated, but is that the idea?
Yeah, it is normal. I mean, George, I would think, particularly when you're doing it for the first time or the first few times.
Right.
I mean, because I struggle with this. I mean, what I struggle with is trying to explain it. Because when you're explaining, you're using, the cognitive brain, you're using language and so on, But and it automatically, your cognitive brain automatically sets up subject object,
Right.
So you're now talking about something else rather than talking about an experience, if you like.
Right. Okay.
That's
Got you.
central to your, yeah.
Mhm,
So it takes practice, but I think the modeling of, somatically modeling it, the three systems help people to move from one to the other better, Another thing that, that I found, and I'm sure there's research on it, is that the three systems, let's call them three systems, or three intelligences, their processing speed isn't necessarily the same. So when you're working with somebody, I don't necessarily expect that we're going to get a decision or a breakthrough to action or something in a particular session, because often, for example, the gut brain wants to go away and sort of ruminate and sort of absorb and digest and sort of figure out when it's ready to shift.
Okay. That makes sense.
So a lot of this is really, it's not so much pushing for closure, but it's actually saying, have you, in what you've experienced in this session, what have you learned and what have you been able to access that maybe you weren't as aware of before,
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Nigel, do you want to any comments? Because I know you've done an awful lot of generative coaching. And
yeah, thank you, Dermot. I found the whole the session really interesting and useful. Working with Tushar, what I found was that such so alignment with generative coaching and generative approach. I found it really lovely working with the somatics because I think words, as Stephen often says, are hopelessly inadequate, can be hopelessly inadequate. And I'm sort of having a felt sense now of the time we spent, Tushar and we spent together, and the dance that took place, the movement, the welcoming of the obstacles as they came in. There was so much that is so precious, and being able to, in each moment, how do I need to be in this moment to hold the space and to create the environment to move forward. And having the head, the heart, the head, the heart, the gut, the heart was interesting. I felt that it was interesting because of who Tushar is and how Tushar is, and working with him, I learned a lot, and I'm finding it really, I'm too close to what we did in order to really give a good feedback, but to see him and this, was that gesture and what it means, clearly means to him now.
Yeah.
After we'd worked and during the time we were working. Wonderful, beautiful.
Excellent.
I hope I explained that well enough.
No, yeah, that it does. Absolutely. Anybody else Judith, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Dermot. And obviously I've worked with this, I mean, it comes up in generative change, and it's very deeply Julian.
Somebody look over, show that ticket, Julian.
Yes, he's about to get nabbed on the train. It's very much part of the part of the field of NLP that I'm most close to. But I really found I was very enriched by it. I found that sequence, you'd never thought of it, that particular sequence, and it was very, very, it was very rich kind of piece of modeling about how good decision could be made, because I think I do make decisions with all three centers in relationship, but I think that kind of sense of the sequence, and I love the really truly deeply as well. That movie, I kept thinking madly truly deeply, that truly madly deeply, what's that? There's a movie, isn't there? It's going, now there isn't a madly. But yeah, I found it very, very profound and very touching and moving. And certainly in our three, we had a lovely experience where we were just very together, and just, it was very experiential, really. It was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Any comments?
And
any
I was
feedback on the experience?
I was with Judith and Claire.
Yes.
And I was a client, and I felt very deeply that I had to find the balance between the three levels, and how and by by hearing my heart, I felt that sometimes I use my brain and not by taking care of my gut, and I need to refill my gut very much for the moment. So that was my experience.
Thank you so much. That really makes sense. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, the last thing I just thought we might do briefly is just discuss any linkages you think there is between this approach and generative coaching or any other sort of generative change applications, if you like. Yeah. So over to you again.
I'll jump in while I have a line.
Thanks, Julian.
Sorry about the noise earlier. For me, the most profound part of, and let me know if there's too much external noise, but
no, you're good.
The most external important part of generative change, and well, not the most important part, but a very significant part of generative change and creative mind, is going to the somatic. This is the big breakthrough of both of those traditions, and particularly in the coaching field. You know, to go somatic in the coaching field, that is a massive breakthrough for coaching. But I think but in general life, really paying attention to the somatic. And I think that is really significant. And that's why I think this model is really important for the generative change and the creative mind fields. Because I think we've got to just pay more and more. There is so much coming through now about the importance of this sort of approach. And as for the exercise, I just think it's a great practice that we could all really incorporate it as a decision-making practice, really checking into the body. In a way, it's obvious, but sometimes we need to be reminded of the obvious, because the sort of indoctrination about thinking from the head rather than from the heart and the gut or from the whole system. We have so much indoctrination around that. So I think it's really, this model fits perfectly within the generative change field. That's my view. Yeah.
Thank you, Julian. Yeah. Anyone else?
I wondered if it would be interesting to think of the coach state as when you're completely in touch with these three centers and they're in touch with each other. And a crash state is when, like in your list of when one is dominating or they're out of sync, or, something that could be almost within this model, a definition of crash,
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great idea. Great. Yeah. I wondered myself, I wondered about one of the things that I struggle with sometimes when I'm doing generative coaching or even just involved on a program is closure. Like the sort of idea of closure, and now I'm very clear what my next step in terms of behavior is, or whatever. So I wonder whether, it might be a useful subroutine, if you like, when you're doing a generative coaching piece of facilitation with someone, to throw in a sequence like that at the end where you're saying, can we just check?
Yeah.
How aligned you now feel, and is there a sort of is there a momentum of energy for you to make a change or to do something different than where you were an hour ago or whatever it was, So I'm interested in that one. Yeah. It's also interesting, I think, the what do we call them? The archetypes. I remember at one point in generative coaching, the three archetypes, and I'm sure that they're very similar to the three highest expressions here. They're probably the same, I suspect, or near enough, And I know, Graciela, you have a lot of interest in energy work and all that. So I wonder whether do you see any overlap with the chakras and all that?
They do. They do.
Yeah.
They are consistent with that work, and but I think that it's a very useful way of integrating and feeling. And I agree. I actually, when what should it say as a coach state, that was part of my description. I said I will. I think I can use this as a coach state while navigating different situations because it felt very useful, and it is of course very connected with the chakra systems, and 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 it resonates with that too. The wisdom that comes from there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yes, I'm just cognizant of time, and you know, one more share, and then we can close up.
Yeah, I really like what I've heard of the summary. That this is a great way of summarizing an ending and really having an inquiry around the coach state. But what I found really also very useful in the process was having in mind all the way through, is this heart, is this head, is this gut, what's going on? And that's a dimension that's going to take a little practice, but just having questions is just having those questions and that awareness enriches every aspect of generative citizen or generative change.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marianne. Really good. Yeah. Vimala, do you want to take it back over and close out?
Yes,
or
actually, yes. Thank you so much. I'm going to hand it over to George for our close.
So it's my honor to close this session for us all, and wherever we are in the world, I believe that Dermot made it very clear to us. He decided to serve us a great cocktail. Yeah, 3 ingredients. All right. So, and those ingredients affect both our mind. So we tasted the brain, the thinking, yeah, rational state. We have some, we swallowed, yeah, saying, what is this drink? What is this cocktail? And we got warmth in the heart. And we, due to, I think, Dermot's skill and also his perception and integrity, he helped us feel safe and welcome to do some very deep and integrative work. So when the cocktail got to our guts, then we also had a great experience. I hope that is the case for everyone. And I hope nobody is upset by the metaphor that I'm using. So Dermot told us that what we were going to be doing was to help people and to help ourselves to grow and develop and to experience and the links to not only the 3 brain approach, but 2 other approaches, which I think we have seen at the end with what Judith said about the coach state and the crash state, which I think it's for all of us useful to reflect and take away. We also have this very important focus that Dermot has made or encouraged us to use, which is starting with the heart. So he's given us, and I'd like to thank him from my own heart and from our own hearts, a great deal of creativity, compassion, and courage. So I'd like to thank you very much indeed, Dermot, for your time this evening and for agreeing to participate and to actually lead us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you all. Thank you.
It now remains, I'm I'm sorry, Vimala, I just sent you an email with that document of the the generative citizen events. Sort of wonder whether you could share that for people so that people understand there's quite a full program in this
I'll put
month.
it in the chat.
All right, you put it in the chat. All right. So please be sure to look at the chat.
See you at the next one. Yeah.
Thank you,
Right.
Dermot. That was great. Thank you,
Yes.
everyone.
Thank
who
you.
spent the evening together. Fantastic. Lovely.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I-
Lovely.
Bye,
Yeah,
folks.
Thank you
I
so
thought it
much.
was great. I thought the
Thank
whole
you.
thing was great.
Yeah.
Dermot, and also the introduction of Graciela and George and Vimala was really. Thanks so much for doing it. It really is wonderful.
Mhm.
Thank you
Wonderful
all.
team.
It's,
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you
very
all.
much.
Take care.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Dermot.
Bye.
Bye.